topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Hey, glad you could join us. Bill Martinez here, and we are live. Keith Gross is going to be joining us in just a moment. And Keith is an attorney, incredible background. He's been on our daily show many, many times, and a former, Politico type. He's gone through the drill and all. His background is quite incredible here. He's a legal analyst and former assistant state attorney and prosecutor for the state of Florida. And he served in the National Guard, a business owner and author of Dirt Roads to Runways, and a potential, I have to say potential in air quotes here, political candidate. Maybe he'll break some news and tell us more about that later on. But we're going to be talking about, how to treat your enemies. Because as the Democrats are finding out, and I guess they kind of understood after all that they put Donald Trump through for almost 10 years. I mean, when you think about it, maybe you could even go back longer than that. You had to know that there was going to be some opportunity for what you might call retribution. I think some have noted that maybe on a couple occasions on the campaign trail, Trump had inferred as much if he didn't outright say that. But why shouldn't the Democrats be nervous? Because had the terrible tables been turned, well, you got to know they'd be all in for retribution. And so the Democrats are finding out. And some of this stuff is quite interesting, the way this retribution is playing out, because it's coming back on themselves. Like what was the pastor, Obama's pastor, had said about the chickens coming home to roost. And that's exactly what seems to be happening with the Democratic Party right now. Well, right now I want to bring on Keith Gross to the show. Keith, welcome to the show. Good to have you with us.
Good to be with you, Bill.
Well, Keith, don't you love retribution? I mean, the Bible says you will reap what you sow, and the Democrats are finding out the hard way, although I don't know that Republicans have the stomach or the audacity to do the kind of things to a political candidate that the Democrats have done to Donald Trump.
Well, I'm not even sure I would call it retribution. I would call it accountability. I would call it enforcement of the law. Mm-hmm. And when we look at the last 4 years before Donald Trump was back in the White House, they were targeted. Conservatives were targeted by the left. You had state attorneys in New York, and that was their entire campaign, is I will get Donald Trump. Look at Fani Willis and the way they indicted not just Donald Trump, but people in his orbit, who many of whom did nothing wrong, weren't even really accused of doing anything wrong other than supporting the president.
Exactly.
So it's accountability time. They say no one is above the law. And ironically enough, the conservatives that were targeted didn't do anything wrong, but these folks did. The folks that are being targeted now did commit serious crimes.
Well, you got Fani Willis, you have Letitia McEvil, that I call her, of New York, who, said, hey, this is what I'm being elected for, which, they say, well, you're not supposed to do that. Well, she did. And the thing was surprising is why New Yorkers would support that. I mean, was Donald Trump that evil as a citizen in New York? I mean, what he did in terms of, jobs that he provided, what he did for the ice skating rink. I mean, on and on. I mean, he was a philanthropist on many levels. And yes, I get it. Some people, have told me, Bill, you don't know, we did business with Donald Trump and this thing went south and whatever. And there was bankruptcy laws and whatever that protected him. Well, that's why bankruptcy laws are there. And I'm sorry that you got injured and everything. But by and large, even like this big case that finally got thrown out, which was absurd, from Erdogan, $500 million judgment against Donald Trump, which was such a joke. I mean, you're an attorney, Keith. I mean, this whole process, what they did to Donald Trump was a kangaroo operation.
It was a kangaroo operation, and it wasn't just one court. You know, this $500 million verdict, that was the one about his appraisal of Mar-a-Lago, right? And it's, unreasonable that the folks in the New York court system thought they could substitute their idea of what a reasonable value is for that of the market. They were trying to find a way to frame Donald Trump for any wrongdoing they could. They made up crimes. They did it in multiple courts. They passed a bill allowing that crazy lady to accuse Donald Trump of sexual misconduct and sue him in court, even though the statute of limitations had long since passed. They passed a legislative act specifically to target him.
Right.
I mean,
well, and then on top of that, Keith, they came and said, well, we don't find any judgment that there was any sexual involvement, but we're still going to level a judgment. What was it? $80 million judgment
for defamation. Cause he said, I didn't rape that woman.
Yeah.
What else are you supposed to do when somebody makes a false accusation? You say, no, I didn't. They're lying. And then this woman sues him saying he defamed her character by calling her a liar.
Well, Monica Lewinsky might want a little bit of that $80 million, huh? I mean, after all, there was a former president who said he didn't have sex with that woman. I don't know. A blue dress says differently, but what can you say,
It's a wild thing to see, Bill, but I'm glad to see that the Trump administration is not backing down. They are bringing accountability. There hopefully will be some serious prosecutions. There will be some arrests.
Keith. There needs to be, because this is what the American people are looking for. I mean, the bottom line, it's justice, right?
That's exactly right.
People want justice, and what's done to Donald Trump. See, people need, and I think people are starting to understand what was done to Donald Trump was done to we the people. The millions of dollars, the lives that it cost, with all that they did to destroy his first administration. I mean, there's implications with COVID, even going back to Hillary Clinton, what happened in Benghazi. You got the missing emails. And was there any association with those emails and the death of an ambassador to our country? I mean, there's just so many questions that are left unanswered. And, she was too big to jail. I guess, that's the way it worked out, because even James Comey, if you remember on that fateful night when he came down with all his examination, and as he's going down through this list, I'm going, oh my God, he's going to indict her. And then all of a sudden he makes a hard left and says no reasonable prosecutor would go after her. I mean, it was almost like from the same playbook that Hur used to justify why he couldn't go after Joe Biden, right?
Absolutely. I mean, they basically said, look, we got the evidence. We saw that he committed a crime, but he's really old. So we're not sure a jury's going to like the idea of prosecuting someone who's old, and maybe he's mentally incompetent. Therefore, we just can't prosecute him. What we've seen for a long time is when the Democrats are in power, they let this stuff slide. If it's a Democrat that does wrongdoing, they find some excuse not to prosecute it. But they took every step they could to try to derail President Trump's next term. They tried to lock up his friends, associates, attorneys, and everybody else that worked for him. When the Democrats have the ball, they run it downfield as fast as humanly possible, willing to break any rule necessary to get the ball downfield. And when Republicans have the ball, for a long time in the past, they've moved it forward at a snail's pace, making sure to cross all the T's, dot all the I's. They don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Well, I'm glad Donald Trump is finally running the ball down the field just as fast as the Democrats would if they had it.
Well, and the thing is, could you imagine if Donald Trump had everybody in the GOP in step with him? I mean, as it is, as you say, he runs down the field, and then he's got to stop, and he's got to put a backbone back in these guys and give them a spine, and then, get them back into play against, come on, follow me, kind of deal. And he's clearly leading the way. But could you imagine how much better we would be if they were up to speed with him? Because he is moving at the speed of light.
Oh, yeah. If we had a Congress that would actually pass his agenda without question, that would confirm all of his nominees quickly,
yes,
the president could be getting a heck of a lot more done for the people. And that's what the people wanted. You saw the people show up at his rallies. They showed up and voted like never before. They made sure that election really was too big to rig, because we learned our lesson last time.
Right.
Now we've actually got to get the work done. I think the president is doing everything he possibly could, and he needs a Congress to back him up.
Well, the thing that I love in terms of accountability, as you said earlier, Keith, is that the contrast is quite obvious. Whether it has to do with the legacy media, social media platforms, the Democrat talking heads like Adam Schiff and Swalwell and Nancy Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffries, go right on down the list. I mean, they are so lost in the wilderness. They have really done this to themselves. They destroyed their brand much the same way that Dylan Mulvaney did with Bud Light, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Democrats have latched on to the most far left ideas that you can imagine. Now they're outright backing a communist in New York City. It looked like they were about to have a communist in Minneapolis, but they've walked that back and said, turns out the vote was rigged. They cheated. There was a lot of irregularities in the machines and the ballots.
Well, imagine that. I mean, after all the research that's being done on these machines, and then they're determining, Keith, that hand ballots, they're 90% cheaper to do it that way than with these machines that are so easy to rig. I don't know if you saw this one technician who came on, but he changed the outcome of the machines with a ballpoint pen.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no reason we don't use paper ballots with serial numbers. There's no reason we can't count these things in one day. I mean, think about the number of voters in most precincts. It's a lot smaller than you would imagine. Mm-hmm. We can get this sort of thing done. We don't need to let it be a drawn out process full of cheating.
Well, the Constitution says we're to reserve one day. And now you got states going, 2 weeks. I like 2 weeks better than one day. Well, the longer term you have, the more opportunity and window for cheating you allow. I mean, it's even like these mail-in ballots. I thought it was curious that Vladimir Putin, one of the things that he said to Donald Trump right away in their recent meeting was, these mail-in ballots are, that's the best way for, fraudulent voting. This is why I think 90% of Europe doesn't do mail-in ballots, if not 100%.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of that being an operable concept in the United States is long since passed. That's something you get to do in a high trust society. And unfortunately, America is moving away from being a high trust society. Mm-hmm. We have people who think it's appropriate, even good, to break the law, bend rules, and do whatever it takes to get their agenda pushed forward. I mean, that's how it seems a lot of these Democrats operate. They think that their mission is so righteous that they can lie, cheat, and steal to accomplish it. They don't value the fact that other people disagree with them and that other people are outvoting them. They think other people are just wrong and they know better. That's a terrifying idea.
Well, they're so ideologically fixed and their philosophy is so flawed. But when you are in groupthink and you're siloed, as Jordan Peterson says, you can, you can become so ideologically fixed that you render yourself stupid. And this is sadly where the Democratic Party is right now. And it's unfortunate that that's where they're at. And I say unfortunate because, for the most part, this country is built on a two-party system. But what happens is when it's so adversarial, see, at the end of the day, you can have two parties. But at the end of the day, you need to come together and say, hey, okay, look, we lost this time, we'll work harder next time and offer a better message to the people and hopefully we'll win next time. And then we move on and, support the smooth transition into a new administration and support the president that the majority of the country has chosen, right? Whether
Absolutely.
It's by popular vote or by the electoral college, but regardless, it's who we voted for and we need to get behind it. But unfortunately, politics has become so dirty. And I've said, Keith, that part of the problem is that, see, politics was always set up in such a way that it would be downstream the culture. Okay. So the culture would influence politics. But what's happened, there was a switch that came over. And I'm not sure exactly when, but it flipped to where culture is downstream politics. And I believe that's contributing to the meanness that people have toward one another and this incivility. The other thing that you mentioned clearly is the fact that, I think our consideration for morality has fallen off as well. John Adams said that our Constitution was designed for a moral and righteous people. And we've lost that grip of morality and righteousness. I'm not saying totally. I still believe a majority of Americans are still moral, but there's still too many that are immoral that think it's okay, it's justified because, after all, Kate, you know that Donald Trump guy, he's a fascist. He is Adolf Hitler incarnate. And, we got to do whatever we have to do in order that, we keep him out of the White House at any cost. And, even if an assassination is necessary, right?
It's pretty terrifying to see that. You talk about the divide between the left and the right these days, and it seems like it's more of a modern problem because we used to at least have major agreement on most issues between the left and the right. At the end of the day, we might disagree on how to get there, but we all agreed that the constitutional values needed to be upheld. Now we're seeing a left that has no interest in upholding constitutional values, and they aren't a moral society more often than not lately. They aren't able to be governed in a way that our Constitution provides because they just don't honor the Constitution.
Well, and they don't honor their fellow citizen. Because when you think, here we have, I don't know, ever in our lifetime, Keith, that there's been so many what you would call 80-15, 90-10 type propositions, right? Whether we're talking the border, whether we're talking about, sex in sports, sex in each other's locker rooms, transgender. Go down the list. These are like 85-15, 90-10 types of issues. And the Democrats consistently are on the short side of the deal. And you think, when you come over for dinner for Thanksgiving, it's hard to have a conversation. There's not many topics left to talk about that's not going to tick you off and have you throwing biscuits across the room. You know what I'm saying?
Well, sometimes maybe it's appropriate to throw a few biscuits because folks need to get good at talking about politics again. They need to understand that their fellow man has a valid perspective, even if it's different from them. But a lot of folks on the left have taken up this idea that they need to support the underdog. And now they think that supporting literally anyone who goes against conventional society, conventional values, must be that underdog who is worthy of their support. And as a result, they end up going against American values. That's what we're seeing in New York right now with this Mamdani communist. They're saying folks can't afford bread, so therefore we need to confiscate private property, run a government-operated grocery store, and to heck with capitalism. But that's the most crazy thing. Why not just help these people succeed by getting the government out of the way, reducing regulation, and let them go earn a living?
Yeah, without a doubt. And you mentioned the underdog. We had this situation in Florida where I live, and not more than 45 minutes from where I live, up in Fort Pierce, where you had a licensed truck driver, licensed from the state of California, oh, by the way, a commercial license, and he makes an illegal U-turn. The guy barely knows the language. When they gave him a language test, of the 16 questions, I think he could only answer 3 correctly. And Keith, I don't know, did you see this? There was something like 2.7 million or 1.7 million, but an incredible number of people who are championing his cause.
It was pretty appalling to see that. This guy killed people by breaking our laws. He shouldn't have been in our country at all. He was here illegally. He never should have been given a license, but he was, of course, by some sanctuary state, California. The real question is, why aren't these California politicians being prosecuted by the federal government for aiding and abetting the illegal aliens? Instead, the rest of us are stuck with a bunch of criminals who are taking our jobs, getting people killed on highways, and they shouldn't even be here.
Exactly. Keith, you're an attorney. Is there any kind of civil liability to where these families could go back and go sue the heck out of, Governor Newsom? Because Governor Newsom, I got to tell you, I was born and raised in California, and I saw when this happened, shortly after, 9/11, I'm talking within 10 years or so, California really went, they're so open-minded, their brains fell out. And then Newsom comes in and here, right after 9/11, remember everything, heightened at airports. You had to have correct documentation. Your shoes were taken. They were taking everything off of you in order to get on an airplane because everything had to be, really tight security and everything. And then what does Newsom do is that he signs an order, a bill so that illegal immigrants can get driver's license. So now they have access to airports and airlines across the country. So what happened to our national security? And all because Governor Newsom wanted to give them a driver's license. And then part two of that was, oh yeah, anybody that has a driver's license, guess what they get? We're going to send them a ballot.
It's really a problem that Democrats want to selectively enforce the laws. They don't like immigration laws, so they just think they should be allowed to ignore them. And we need to have federal prosecutions for these state governments that allow aliens to take benefits like driver's licenses from states. These are ultimately federally funded benefits for the most part, and the federal government should step in and enforce the law. They should prosecute state politicians who issue these licenses. To your original question, can the families who lost people due to this illegal immigrants U-turn, can they sue? Yeah, they can sue. Will they win? Probably not. Unfortunately, the government has kind of rigged the cards against the people over the last few decades, and the concept of immunity has been so broadened that it's virtually impossible to hold a government official who, even one who conducts serious negligence, like we're seeing with the California driver's license issuance, it's really hard to hold them accountable and win that case in court because immunity is just too broad. We need legislation about this to narrow the scope of that immunity. But more importantly, we need the U.S. Department of Justice to start locking these people up because they are helping illegal aliens evade capture.
Well, and these, as you said, these illegal aliens coming, first of all, they break the law, coming into our country without, proper authorization. And they steal from the American people. I mean, who do you let into your home to come in and start stealing your groceries and steal food off your table that is supposed to go to your kids? But on a larger scale, we're allowing them to come in. I mean, this is so unjust. It's not right on so many levels for even the immigrant. And so what happens, the Democrats here, they let them in. They have to operate in the shadows. And it's almost like we're back at the turn of the 20th century again, where you had the rise of mafias operating in these cities because they had a lot of illegal immigrants in there. And who could they go to? Well, I can go to a mafia boss. The mafia boss will do my bidding. I can't call the police. And so who do these illegal immigrants go to? Well, they've got gang members now that operate as their, quasi government and their police force to do their bidding. They're not going to dial 911. And so the Democrats in their thinking go, well, they're not going to call 911. So maybe what we ought to do is we'll turn our cities into sanctuary cities and everybody will be safe. Well, how's that working for you? It's not so safe in these sanctuary cities. This is why when Donald Trump is doing what he's doing to bring these sanctuary cities back up to code again and have law enforcement, you have these local citizens going, thank you, Donald Trump. I haven't been able to take my kid to a park in 10 years.
It gets back to this idea that the left and right are just unnecessarily divided. We should at least agree that all of the laws need to be enforced. If the folks on the left don't like the law, well, then try to change it in Congress. Right. But you can't just ignore the law and let a bunch of illegals take over. That's unacceptable.
Well, when we started, we talked about, how retribution is working out. Some of it is, it's just the natural inertia of things. You can only do so much evil and eventually it'll come back and get you. And this is what seems to be happening, particularly with the Democrats. It bothers me, Keith, I got to tell you, to constantly be pointing fingers at the Democrats. And I know some people say, well, the Republicans do it too. Well, it doesn't make it right. And even if the Republican, whoever they are, they should be, they should be held into account. If there's, if they've broken the law, they should be. I mean, here it is. You put Donald Trump through all kinds of hell and what have you. And, even with this last judgment, the courts didn't even support Erdogan to have $1 substantiated of the $500 million that he assigned to Trump. What does that say?
The idea of equal justice has got to be restored. And if that means holding a lot of these deep state actors like John Bolton accountable, well, I think that's a good start in the right direction. It shouldn't matter whose party you're in, what your political views are. If you break the law, it should be enforced uniformly. In the meantime, we've got a lot of progress happening. There's progress happening on holding these people accountable, but we've already seen the illegal immigrants that were coming across our border stop. All it took was a new president. And I said this all along during the campaign season. Everybody said, well, we need this new bill or we need this new funding. No, you just need a president willing to enforce the laws that are already on the books.
Keith, in one day, he turned the border around.
Yep.
Like you said, there wasn't any big act of Congress or anything like that. I mean, we've been waiting for Congress to act on immigration for how many years, decades? It's been going on and on. And
That's right.
all they can do is, let's find a way to amnesty these illegal immigrants, and going, wait a minute, you don't even have a handle on this. You know, we have an immigration system that's pretty effective that allows for about 1 million immigrants to come in, and they do so legally. They also do it in a way that is not a burden on the taxpayer. There's certain regulations that have to be in line here. And these people that come in like this, guess what they want to do, Keith? They want to assimilate. They want to be a part of the American dream. And the only way you can be part of the American dream is you got to be in the boat with the rest of us, don't you?
You've got to come to this country and join the fabric of American society. You have to assimilate. You can't do like these folks are doing in Minneapolis and try to build mini Somalia up there, change the state flag, call to prayer in what used to be a great American city. I mean, they've totally tried to build their foreign nation in Minneapolis instead of joining a thriving community with manufacturing, great jobs. They could have joined all of that, adopted American values, and instead they insist in keeping their third world paradigms and worse, trying to impose those third world paradigms on Americans.
Exactly. Well, where's the leadership in Minneapolis, Keith? You know, just like where's the leadership in Baltimore or DC, where Trump has to come in and bring the National Guard in. And just like at the border, what's it been? Almost 2 weeks. Nobody's been murdered in DC. People can walk the street, and actually like one couple, they were being interviewed, said, we're able to go out to dinner again. We haven't been able to go out to dinner in the longest time. We forgot what it was like.
Leftists have gotten so soft that they're allowing the criminals to take over. That's the lack of leadership. It's that these people have such a utopian, idealistic vision that they are blind to reality. It sounds so nice not to lock people up until you realize that when you don't lock up bad guys, they hurt people. Law enforcement needs to be given free rein to enforce the law, and prosecutors need to be directed to actually put them in jail, not just let them out the back door with a slap on the wrist or a small cash bail. We've seen that happen in all the blue cities all over the country. The story just keeps repeating. And leftists aren't standing up and saying, you know what, we were wrong. Soft on crime's a terrible idea, gets people hurt. They still think they're right. It's the most illogical, insane thing I have ever seen.
Well, and this is why the people on the right who have had success time and again, we need to hold our ground, there's no apology. I mean, what are we doing? We're saving lives here. We're allowing people to enjoy their communities again, families to thrive again. And where are they thriving? In these red states, not the blue states. The blue states, people are escaping. I mean, you don't even want to stand at the exit doors in any of these blue states like New York and California. You're going to get run over by U-Hauls getting out of Dodge.
Yes. And you say blue states, and heck, if you delete a few of those blue cities within each of those states, it's a red state. We don't really even have blue states in this country. We have a few bright blue cities that either outvote or defraud the vote and outweigh the rest of us. We shouldn't be ruled by a bunch of blue cities.
Well, and this is the thing, and basically, I read that as a hint towards gerrymandering. I mean, the Democrats have become, 10-degree black belts in gerrymandering. They've been doing this, getting away with it for over 10 years plus. Eric Holder was like the gerrymandering czar for the Democratic Party, especially after he left the Biden and the Obama administration. And, and so now Republicans have woke up. Thank you very much, Donald Trump, that said, hey, guys, you don't need to roll over anymore. I mean, to the victor belong the spoils. We need to level out the playing field here. You can't have 45% of a state voting Republican and getting 0 seats representation. I mean, it's like the illegal immigrants have better representation than 45% of the citizens. How does that math work out, Keith?
No, that's exactly the problem with the Democrat Party is they scream and cry and accuse. And in reality, they are the ones who have been gerrymandering these states for decades now. It's not just 1 or 2 states. It's a dozen states where it's more than 30 or 40% of the vote is Republican, but 0 of the congressional seats are Republican seats because they have gerrymandered the heck out of those states for decades. Now you finally see a state like Texas stepping up and working to fix that, and a state like Florida threatening to. And the Democrats are up in arms saying it's just unbelievable that the Republicans would do this. They don't want to admit that they've been doing it for decades.
Well, and it ticks me off, Keith, frankly, and putting it mildly, that they, of course, they right away, knee jerk, throw the race card out. They're being racist. It's all designed, to oppress blacks. And when you look at how the design of the map is being reconstructed in Texas, for example, it's very fair. It actually opens up, I believe, 2 seats for black representation if the people locally so choose, for a black representative, right? I mean, if it had been the Democrats and said, you think they're going to open up seats for Republicans? I haven't heard one time where they've opened up a seats. And the only time seats get opened up on some of these blue states is because there's an outside, supposedly an independent commission like they have in California. And but yet some of these outlines of these states, I mean, it's hysterical. I mean, I think the Democrats are going to rue the day that they brought this up to issue, because now it's being scrutinized. The voter is starting to see this themselves, and they go, oh, now I get it. I understand now why certain legislation is coming down the pike the way it is, and why it's so biased is because we really don't have a voice here. We don't have any representation. And when you're talking, like you said, 45% of the electorate with 0 representation, I'll tell you, that makes for a lot of unhappy campers, I would think, Keith.
For sure. And we're seeing the misuse of the Voting Rights Act by Democrats for exactly what it is lately. And courts have been striking down these challenges like they did recently in Florida, where they struck down a challenge for redrawing the map. And they said it was, not appropriate under the Voting Rights Act, that it was racist. But the reality is Democrats have been enslaving and abusing Black Americans since hundreds of years now. Right. And here they are using them again, throwing the race card out, trying to say that that's the reason Republicans can't redraw districts, even though it would be a fair map drawing in any other sense. It's the same reason that Democrats oppose voter ID when it comes to voting in person. They say, well, Black people can't get driver's licenses.
Issue, Keith, an 80% issue say voter ID. Yes, we support that. But again, 80-20. Give me 20%. That's where the Democrats are at. It's crazy.
It's really wild. It should never be controversial in America that you need to prove that you're a U.S. citizen and that you are who you say you are to cast a ballot to control the outcome of our country. It's one of the most sacred things you get to do as a citizen. It needs to be protected.
Well, it's the consent of the governed. How do you claim you have the consent of the governed if you've stuffed a ballot box? You've done away with free and fair elections. I mean, even in California, for example, Judicial Watch just got a decision, and they had 3 million voters, Keith. 3 million voters that were on their voter roll that were dead. They're dead. Okay. Now you would think, okay, these guys are dead. We need to take those 3 million. Oh no, they fussed, they fought. They were able to get, 1.5 million off the voter roll, because they're still not convinced the other 1.5 are dead, And the other thing is that it's interesting because only in California, you can die a Republican and come back and vote a Democrat.
Yeah, I've seen some bumper stickers around my town here in Florida, and that's what some of these bumper stickers say. They say, hey, when I die, don't let me vote Democrat.
But it's funny, but on the other hand, it's affecting the body politic. It's affecting policy. Look at what happened. Joe Biden's in there for 4 years. You mentioned, you get the Robert Hur report, says the guy's incompetent. He's mentally deficient. He couldn't handle a courtroom environment. He couldn't handle a judicial process. And then what do? They sent him back to the Oval Office with the nuclear codes. It's like, hoy, come on, give me a break, man. You need to put a bag over this guy's head, take him to Delaware and leave him there and give him his soup, 3 times, whatever it is. I mean, the guy, you've got a special prosecutor who spent all this time interviewing him. And the conclusion is he's a hot mess. And we go, oh, but I guess he's not a hot mess enough. So we're just going to let him go and finish out the last 2 years, 1.5 years of his administration. And then look what happens. Then we get the mad auto pen in the last, month and half of his administration that, they're looking at that. God only knows how many of those could probably be null and void, including, which I would love, Dr. Fauci and all the stuff that he put us through, and the hundreds of thousands of people that died based on his advice and counsel that he knew so much about, right?
And the freedoms that we lost because the government operated like a band of tyrannical crazy people. They thought it was okay to override the Constitution and ignore all of our rights in the name of public safety, supposedly, based on fake advice, bad science, and concealed reality. So I'm hopeful, like I think a lot of us are, that we'll see some real accountability for the end of Biden's term and the fact that people use the auto pen, effectively stealing the power of the presidency without his authorization, knowledge, or mental capacity. I hope we'll see some investigations into the failure of the cabinet to enact the 25th Amendment that they had a duty to do. They swore an oath to us, to the people, to uphold our Constitution. But when it came time to call out the fact that we had a mentally incompetent person sitting in the presidency, they didn't do that. They let it slide. Right. If a Republican had done the same thing, it would be, meltdown. But they did it, and they think we're just supposed to move on and forget. Like I said, I wouldn't call this retribution. I would call this due accountability.
Right. Well, Keith, the thing is, go back toward the last year of Donald Trump. It was Nancy Pelosi that was championing the 25th Amendment, right? She was trying to force that into issue to have that employed and was challenging the cabinet, Donald Trump's cabinet, to employ the 25th Amendment, claiming that he was, mentally deficient, back then. And it's just amazing. So here it was. And I remember when she did that, I said, this could come back and haunt them. But of course, the Democrats, being who they are, like you said, a Republican, if they do something that is unacceptable, they can't get them out of there fast enough. But if it's a Democrat, boy, the wagons circle around them. They stand alongside, whether it's Hillary Clinton's, thousands of emails that got lost that you have no idea what happened to them. But I think that, again, if it ever really comes out, because she managed to destroy, and as an attorney, I mean, she destroyed evidence, Keith.
It's a pretty serious deal. And we never saw accountability for that, unfortunately. We probably never will because so much time has passed. But Democrats, they do the same thing every time. They all come out, they say the same thing like they're reading from a script. And the next thing they do is try to shift the narrative, usually by accusing Republicans of whatever it is they were just doing.
Oh, they project. Yeah, there's no doubt. Keith, the deal is that, here we are, we've been talking for almost 40 minutes here, and there is so many things that they need to be held accountable for. And it's like, can the people keep up with it all? Because whether we're talking, what Obama did during the transition, and even before then, what he did with the Tea Parties, I still maintain that he and Lois Lerner have affected at least 9 votings. I mean, you talk about voter interference. What they did by not giving tax exemption, which was a routine exercise for the IRS to do for nonprofit organizations. But Obama, just like LBJ did back in the mid 60s about churches, Obama said, no, we can't let these people have this kind of force and energy. You cannot, he kind of winked at Lois Lerner, and look what she did, and she got in the way, interfered, and that still hasn't been rectified. And I still say at least 9 voting cycles in counting that it affected. I mean, that is voter interference on its face. So to think that Obama was above doing the kind of things that have been reported in terms of what he did to Trump, it's not far-fetched. I mean, it's consistent with his character, I would think.
Yeah, and there's only so much you can do to go back in history and try to right wrongs. But I think Donald Trump is prioritizing things. He's got a lot of really smart people working in his administration. They're working around the clock, and they're moving things. They're not afraid to disrupt the status quo. I mean, look at what they did with USAID, and now suddenly Antifa's out of money and the Democrat Party's not getting donations. I mean, I think they found the head of the snake and they cut that off. So I know they're working down the chain. They're working towards the rest of these problems that still exist.
Yeah.
And maybe 4 years isn't long enough to get real change on every front. But I know they're going to get the high points. They're going to get the biggest things that we need to get done. And that's more than we've ever had before. So I'll take it.
Well, this is why I said, one of the reasons why I said that we had to look at 4 + 8. 4 years of Trump, 8 more years of a Republican. And the thing is it's kind of been a gift that the Democrats have given to the American people by getting lost out in the wilderness right now. They're stranded because they've abandoned who they are. They don't know who they are. And in their desperation, they're just going more and more left. And, here the American people have already spoken time and again, woke doesn't work. I don't care if you're talking Bud Light, Disneyland. I mean, the billions of dollars, probably, if you started adding it up, be trillions of dollars that these businesses have lost under these woke policies and DEI and the Democratic Party. And you bring up something that, no one has said before, but I think you're spot on, Keith. And that is in talking about this money, like that was going to USAID and these other entities, how that was coming back to the Democratic Party. And interesting, you choke off that part of the snake and look at their fundraising. What are they? 1/8, 1/7 of what the Republicans are right now in fundraising?
It's pretty wild to see. And there is still a lot of progress to be done. And like you said, I'm looking at it that way. I'm looking at it in hopes that we're going to have 8 years of a J.D. Vance administration.
Right.
The Democrats made a big mistake. They came for Donald Trump and they missed. They gave him 4 years to plan, 4 years to prepare and find good people, knowing how underhanded the Democrats are and knowing how rough it's going to be. So now he went back into office knowing all the dirty tricks they're going to try to pull. And instead of getting distracted, trying to defend against their ridiculous allegations this time, he's just ignoring it, rolling on and doing the work he wanted to do.
Right.
The real thing the Democrats aren't ready for is J.D. Vance, because he's seen all of this happening. He is whip smart. He's a brilliant attorney.
Right.
He is going to get in there and be more ruthless than the Democrats can possibly imagine. If they think Donald Trump's hard to deal with, wait till they get J.D. Vance, because he's going to take that torch from Trump and keep running.
Well, you imagine the playbook that Trump has developed over these years, Keith. It's impressive, and he's going to hand that off to the next administration. I mean, you talk about White House secrets, that Trump has that are just, hey, this is what they do. This is the playbook. Don't, stay the course. And that's the thing that I appreciate that you just brought out about Trump. He is dead eye focused on this. He doesn't seem, he still loves to troll the media. I think it's amusement for him at times. And I get it. Some Republicans, they get nervous about it. I said, look, he's just having fun. Don't, just relax. Politics, even in the midst of this insanity, can still be fun. Can it, Keith?
It definitely can. And he seems to have fun with it. Like he says it outright. He says, it's called, we're going to go do a little trolling. And he goes and says something just to get him wound up. And It's really fun to watch him get going after he goes and winds them up.
Well, and it's a little bit easier to have fun when you're winning.
Yep.
Right. And at every turn, we just keep on winning. And that's why, these socialists, when they come in and they try to do something, you might have a bit of a falling like Mamdani has in New York. And it's like, what a train wreck that's going to be. Already these businesses are not participating. They're looking at an exit. If you were a corporation in New York, you're looking for an exit plan or plan B, because if this guy gets into office, here he is. Government stores, grocery stores. Grocery stores there in New York, lucky at 1.5%, 2%, they operate on a margin. The government doesn't know about 1.5% or 2%.
No, they're going to lose money, but citizens are going to think it's great. They're going to see discount groceries and think that's awesome. They're not going to see the fact that massive tax revenues are offsetting the losses behind the scenes, and they're not going to care because they're probably not the ones paying those taxes. But what it is going to do is run all the people who pay the taxes out of town.
Right, exactly. And the thing is, it's interesting because when it came up, it was not that long afterwards that in Missouri, they had a government-run store, and they were showing how it was shutting down. And all you saw was a bag of, I think, hot dog buns on the shelf. One bag. So It's like so much for that success. But the thing is, like anything, you always want to look at what somebody has done tells you what they're going to do. And communism is the same way. Socialism is the same way. You look back in history, and you can't even recount one country that said socialism was the best thing that ever happened to me, as opposed to capitalism, for example, because that's really what the war is all about. It's either going to be capitalism or it's going to be socialism or socialism light or some derivation of an ism that they have to offer. And they may get exactly what they're asking for and have to find out that gravity still exists, right?
They might. Folks are dying to come to America from communist and socialist countries, not the other way around, generally speaking. And it's just like crime. It's about incentives. If you incentivize something, you get more of it. If you disincentivize or punish something, you get less of it. What do you think is going to happen in a capitalist society when you take away the incentive that if you go out, build a business and earn good money, you get to keep that money and, enjoy the fruits of your labor? You take away the fruits of the labor, there's no point in doing the labor anymore. And that's how pretty much every communist country in history has fallen apart and starved its citizens, because people just said, well, if I'm not going to get anything for doing all this work, why work? I get the same amount if I don't work.
Well, exactly. Well, that's like, unions. That's why unions have, in terms of the private sector, at one point they were about 33% of the labor force. I think it's down to less than 10%. And so where did they grow? They grew in government. And that's why it's so hard in some cases to do the things that Elon Musk and Doge proposed, because you had to deal with unions. And, and it's tedious. But I love what Trump is doing in terms of giving hope to the American people, Keith. And I know you do too, because it's about having a fair shot at it, and also to be able to keep the fruit of your labor and all your hard work, right?
Absolutely. And talking about these unions in government, that's just about restoring the constitutional order. The idea that a union can override the constitutional authority of the executive branch head, the president, in hiring and firing, that's just an anti-constitutionalist idea. No contract can override the Constitution. That is the supreme law of the land. And we need to have more people on the bench who understand that and who will start to uphold the constitutional provision against invalid laws and start invalidating laws that conflict with the Constitution.
And we need to send people to Congress who believe the same thing, Keith. We can't have whooshy, Republicans, spineless legislators who go in and want to, be invited to cocktail parties and be more interested in getting reelected than doing the people's business. We've had too much of that. We have an opportunity right now. We're seeing the truth of the matter, and we have an opportunity to correct course, as you say, and hopefully the American people can follow Donald Trump's lead. And if you lack a spine, find your spine, whatever it is that you need to do in order to turn this country around and to turn over to the next generation an America that's greater than it's ever been. And here we are. I think the potential is there, Keith, with, what we're doing with tariffs and what Trump is doing with peace. I don't know how long this thing can last, but why not make the most of it while the sun is shining, I'd say.
Bill, I think it's going to last. This is the generation where we can start to restore the freedoms that have been lost over the years, where we can push back against government regulation and where we can push back against the bad foreign trade deals that America has been stuck with for a long time. We've finally got a president who is only worried about one thing, and that is caring for Americans. He's not worried about being looked upon kindly by the rest of the world. He cares about taking care of Americans, and that's what a president should do. So now we need to make sure that the people in Congress back him up, pass laws to support his agenda, and I think that's going to keep happening. It's not just right now. When you look at the voting demographics with the young kids now, 20-year-olds are voting more conservatively than 75-year-olds. They've seen the downside of a tyrannical government. They've seen excessive bureaucracy in action, and they know we need less government in our lives if we want to have freedom.
Well, Keith Gross, you're awesome. Thank you. I appreciate your insight and encouragement. And I understand you may be running for office. Can I say that?
Well, I haven't announced yet. I'm not ready to make any announcements, but I certainly haven't ruled it out. I've been asked to run, and it's definitely not ruled out at this stage. I live up in the Florida Panhandle, as you probably know, in Congressional District 2, and I'll say it's not ruled out.
Well, I'll take that bit of good news and bit of encouragement. Our audience will as well. Keith Gross, legal analyst, former assistant state attorney and prosecutor for the state of Florida. He served in the Montana National Guard. He's a business owner. He's the author of Dirt Roads to Runways. And we'll wait and see if he is and becomes a political candidate for the Panhandle there in District 2 in Florida. Keith, we need you.
We need a lot of work to be done in Congress. And right now we see a lot of fancy dinner parties and a lot of folks that want to keep their jobs rather than do it. Mm-hmm. I think it's time to get some change, get some energy up there, and get things done.
Well, again, Keith, thank you so much for being with us. Take care. Be blessed.
Thank you.
Keith Gross has been our guest. I'll tell you what, I just appreciate his insight and his experience and what we were able to talk about. I hope you've been blessed by the conversation. And that's going to be a wrap for us. Thank you. May God bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you. May he be gracious unto you and give you peace. God bless.